Okay, so chapter 2, Toby meets Fluttershy. Here we go. Toby sighed softly in his sleep as he began to stir underneath the warm, soft, and big covers of what he thought was his bed. He was laid on his right side as his head rested on the softest of pillows, and he made a light yawn while he began to blink his eyes open. As he peered through the lenses of his eyeglasses, his vision was still a little blurred, so he reached up underneath them with his hands and rubbed at his eyes. When his vision came into focus, he saw a stone fireplace with a wooden mantel over the pit, which held what appeared to him as a clock, a standing picture frame, and over the mantel, placed on the stone structure, was a picture of flowers in a pot. He looked around in confusion as he started to slowly turn in the bed to look at the roof, which he noticed had many wooden beams supporting the cottage, and along the beams strewn what looked like a tree vine. There were a few clumps of straw that must have been what he thought was bird nests. A couple of birdhouses hung high from the ceiling.
This isn't my room. Where am I?
Toby thought to himself as he began to shake from fear of not recognizing his surroundings. He looked down at the bed he was in, and instead of seeing a Superman logo bed covers, he saw white and orange bed sheets with a diamond pattern that held what looked to him like butterflies. The butterflies in the white diamonds had orange wings, and the butterflies in the orange diamonds had white wings. He slowly lifted the bed sheets to make sure he was still in his pajamas. He did notice he still had on his thin white shirt, his red and black plaid long pajama bottoms, and ankle white socks on in silent relief. Believing this was all just a dream, he reached with his right hand to pinch at his left arm.
Ow!
He made a little whimper as he realized this wasn't a dream, but real. As he laid in the strange bed, he suddenly heard the sound of what he thought was footsteps ascending the staircase. He pulled the bedsheets over himself and curled up as tight as he could in a ball, hugging his legs. As they pressed against his chest, he couldn't control his fear, and he started to tremble like a leaf as the footsteps got closer. After tending to all of her animal friends by providing them with their morning meals and cleaning up a little downstairs, Fluttershy decided to fix the small creature a bowl of oatmeal. She used the finest of oats to cook the food, poured a little bit of milk in them to soften their texture, and then added a touch of fresh honey to sweeten the oatmeal. As she ascended to the top of the staircase with the bowl carefully set between her soft, feathery wings, she noticed that the small mound in her bed and carefully trotted next to her bed. Toby was so scared of what it may be that was closing in on him, he reached up and let his arms cover his head. He was shaking terribly. Tears were starting to form in his eyes as the once darkness that covered him under the bedsheets started to disappear as a little light began to shine on him. He closed his eyes tighter, afraid to open them to see what monster was before him. Fluttershy very gently started pulling the bedsheets from over the small creature as a bowl of oatmeal sat on a small table at the side of her bed. Her eyes started to tear up as well when she saw the little form trembling uncontrollably, and a frown formed across her face when she could see a couple tears coming out of its eyes. Calmly, she lifted a wing and hovered it over the shaking creature as she started to very lightly stroke its back.
Shh! It's okay, little one. I'm not going to hurt you. Please don't be afraid. Shh!
She spoke with the most softest and most tenderness of voices to try and calm the frightened creature, while she continued to gently stroke its back with her wing. Upon hearing the softness of the voice which spoke to him, and sounded like the voice of his mother, Toby began to slowly open his eyes. His eyes opened with still a hint of fear, his lower lip quivering as he came to see what appeared to be a big horse in front of him. However, this horse was unlike any one he had seen before, because it had a yellow-colored coat, and as he looked to see what was touching him, he saw that it had wings. He looked up into its big yet pretty sky-blue eyes as it smiled softly at him. Fluttershy spoke to him as gentle as she could while still stroking his back, feeling that his shaking had calmed down at her soft touch.
There, little one. It's okay. No need to be afraid.
She gave him a reassuring smile.
I made you some oatmeal, precious. Are you hungry?
She asked gently as she carefully climbed up on the bed and sat with her forelegs over the edge. She tenderly pulled the creature to her side with her wing. Feeling comforted by her soft voice and extra care she used to pull him to her side, Toby slowly sat up with his little legs resting barely on the edge of the bed. He looked up with a little smile, but afraid to speak as he felt her reach her wing out to the small table beside her bed and grab the bowl of oatmeal. She placed the oatmeal, which was still warm, on her lap as she gently let her wing lay over his back for support.
There. You see, I'm not going to hurt you.
She gently reached behind him with forearms to rub at his back, while looking down at him with a soft smile.
I made this from the freshest of oats. I added a little bit of milk and honey to make it sweet for you.
She looked down at him as he only came up from the elbow of her foreleg sitting. She wrapped her little forehoof around the spoon that sat in the bowl and scooped some oatmeal up. She brought it to the small creature's mouth, and it smiled at the little as it took the bite. After several good bites, Toby finished all the fresh homemade oatmeal. He smiled softly up at Fluttershy as she returned the same genuine smile. She gently reached over to her left and placed the bowl on the chest that sat in front of her bed and turned back to look down at him.
You sure were hungry, weren't you, little one?
She smiled softly and let out a small giggle. She saw him smile a little more, and she very gently asked him as she held her wing over him.
Can you speak, little one? Do you have a name?
Toby nodded, but put his head down, afraid to speak. Fluttershy lowered her head beside him and lightly nuzzled at his cheek with care as her soft pink mane laid on his shoulder. He lifted his head back up to look into her eyes as she smiled brightly, showing her pearly white teeth. With a shy swallow, he spoke with a little stammer.
My name is Toby, miss.
He looked up with a soft smile. Fluttershy smiled down at him, but surprised at the shyness he showed when speaking.
Why, hello, Toby. You don't have to call me miss. My name is Fluttershy. It's good to meet you, little one.
She nuzzled gently at his cheek. He looked up and spoke softly.
Hi, Fluttershy. It's good to meet you, too.
Feeling comfortable next to her, he gently brought his legs up on the bed, curling them back a little, and laid against her side. This action caused Fluttershy's heart to melt as she laid her wing over him. She looked down and gave the top of his head a little kiss.
Toby, sweetie, if it is okay with you, would you like to come with me to meet my friends? They are really nice and will never hurt you. I promise.
He looked up at her as she smiled reassuringly at him.
Oh, okay, Fluttershy. That would be nice.
He spoke as soft as Fluttershy.
That's wonderful, Toby. Maybe my friend Twilight Sparkle can tell me what kind of creature you are and where you come from. First, I think we should go visit my friend Rarity.
She smiled softly down at Toby, looking over his clothes.
She loves designing new clothes. I'm sure she wouldn't mind creating an outfit for you. Also, maybe if it's okay with you, Toby, we could wash you up at her boutique.
She carefully lifted Toby up with her forelegs and placed him on the floor. As she climbed off the bed and stood up on all four legs, Toby saw her stand up on two forelegs. She looked down at him and thought for a second.
You know what, Toby? So other ponies won't be staring at you and scaring you, maybe you could ride in my saddlebag. I'm sure the pockets are big enough for you to fit.
She went over to her dresser where her saddlebag lay to the side. She trotted back over to Toby and set them down beside him. He came up to just the top of one of the saddlebag's side pockets. She smiled down at him and tenderly lifted him up, placing him in one of the pockets.
There. Now don't be scared, Toby. I promise not to walk too fast.
She lowered her head to give him a kiss on the top of his head and gently lifted the saddlebag up over her back and wings. Carefully, she trotted down the staircase as Toby saw a crowd of animals in her den who stared at him curiously.
Now, my precious animals. It's not polite to stare. This little one is Toby, and he's going to be staying with us for a while, till I can find out where he came from and how to get him back home. She looked down at her faithful pet bunny who hopped in front of her. Angel, my sweet baby. Mama's going to be out for a while, so you're in charge, okay?
The bunny nodded and gave a salute. Fluttershy lowered her head and kissed Angel on top of his head.
All right, Toby. Don't be scared, okay? I'll keep you safe.
She smiled back at Toby as he smiled back softly, lowering himself into the side pocket, his feet barely touching the bottom. With one last check to make sure he was safe, Fluttershy trotted out of her cottage and made her way towards Ponyville. Yay! I'm not sure what the, I forget which chapter in this story is the most feelsiest. I think, from what I remember, it would have to be, oh no. Which one's the talent show one? I forget. Keep in mind, it's been like 6 months since I've read this story. Oh, let's see. First day of school is sad. A lot of sad chapters, but they're also great. Is it saying goodbye? I'm just checking really quick. here. I'm just scrolling through the chapter. It is. Okay. Yeah. Saying goodbye is probably the saddest chapter, but it's not my favorite, actually. My favorite chapter is, Gems Galore and Spot Treatments. And Jason knows why. I made that chapter really fucking funny. Because it was fucking funny in context, but Allo and Lotus's voice in my original reading, I made it so over the top that's my favorite chapter. Pretty much because I just made it so fucking stupid. So yes, I can't wait to get to that one. So thank you guys for watching and listening. I'll be reading more tomorrow, and yeah. See, my voice just cracked. See you guys later. That was a bit fucking flag. Okay.